Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, about having the things you need and still having enough. And I guess that raises the whole question, which is one of the key things I wanted to talk about today, about where do you draw the line? Because I often get asked that myself, and I find it a difficult question to answer. In the one sense, I mean, the argument that I've used, which I discussed with this class a few classes back about saving the child drowning in the pond, is one that when applied to global poverty, you can repeat indefinitely, or at least indefinitely, given the way the world is today. So you save one child, and that's a better decision than buying an expensive pair of shoes, but there are more children to save, so you're going to end up never buying anything expensive at all, and maybe reducing yourself to, it's not exactly a cardboard box, to the bare necessities. So obviously, you know, you've reached a level where you don't do that, although you're still giving something very substantial. Can you sort of talk to us about how you and Jeff reached a decision about how much you give?
So initially, before I made any sort of purchase, I was thinking about there's a woman somewhere far away from here who needs that money to buy food for her children, or who needs, her kids need immunizations. And do I need this carton of ice cream more than her kid needs to be vaccinated? Like, clearly the answer is no. She needs it more than I do. And I think that was very influential in my thinking about how to deal with money, but I also think that can drive you crazy if you do it every day, multiple times a day, when you're considering every carton of ice cream, just grocery shopping was maddening. So what we found worked for us was to, every 6 months or a year or so, say, okay, this is our budget, this is what we're giving, this is what we're gonna keep for ourselves, and we'll try that out for 6 months, try it out for a year, see how it goes, and adjust after that. And that worked a lot better for us than the sort of daily angst of trying to figure out what you really needed, what was a luxury, what was a necessity. And so in doing that, we're able to spend our money pretty much like other people do. We have a budget. It's a smaller budget than we earn, but just like everyone, we're working within a budget. And that money is ours to do what we want with, and then the other money is given away. So that system has worked really well for us.
Right. So you say in the blog that we each, a bit of echo here, we each get about $40 a week in spending money, which covers clothes, cell phones, gifts, vacations, meals out, etc. I guess that means you don't dine out a whole lot.
Not a lot.
You don't spend a lot on clothes either. But you feel that that's, so you are still making decisions, presumably, within that overall budget. I agree with you that I think it's impossible to do it on a every purchase kind of basis. But you feel you're not really missing out on anything important within that budget?
I don't think so, and that budget has gotten larger and smaller at different times. But no, I think we really prioritize spending time with people we enjoy. We live near Jeff's family, and we spend a lot of time with them. We spend time with our friends, and that's really what gives us the most enjoyment. And the meals out and things like, yeah, we do it from time to time, but not all that often. And there are times when money certainly can facilitate, having things that are important, whether that's lunch with a friend or whatever. And so there's some space for that, but maybe not, just not huge amounts of money going to it. So.
Right. And what about the vacations? I mean, can you travel on that budget, or are you camping out in local parks or something?
Yep. So, for example, when I finished grad school, I wanted to work on my Spanish. We both wanted to work on our Spanish, so we had saved up for a while, and we went to Ecuador, spent several weeks there working on our Spanish and seeing the Andes, and it was really great. So, part of it was, we had a reason that we wanted to, and I now use Spanish in my work all the time, so I think it was a good investment also, but you pick and choose. So we don't go, every summer, but we still travel some, yes.
Right. So let's talk about your decisions. Obviously, yours were different. Firstly, in that you had made a lot more money. quite a lot of money. But also you had the situation with your wife and children that were not really on board with what you were doing. So how did you decide what to keep for yourself and to donate?
Well, I set up a fund for I have 4 kids, and I set up a fund for their college education. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania has a program that's pegged to tuition inflation, so it has stayed constant and will provide for them even if they go to a place as expensive as this place. And my daughter is going to Columbia. Some of the articles don't mention that I did that, but everybody was provided for. I guess no one will ever feel that they're entirely provided for, and people will continue throughout your life to argue with you that the thing is unwise, but I think that what you did is going to be more propulsive in our society. It's going to be more shocking, and compel people to begin to think about changing their lives than, say, the Gates-Buffett pledge, where fantastically wealthy people will give away 90%, but they'll still have 1 or 2 billion. I have spoken to people about what you've done and a few other people, and I know that it started them thinking a lot more than the Gates-Buffett pledge. So I think that when you feel this inner compulsion, you should act on it and let your friends have the benefit of having their minds blown by it. But I also wonder about what you did, if there aren't some ancillary benefits beyond even the philanthropic benefits. For instance, if you or your husband went into business, you would have this wonderful penny pinching habit that you'd carry into your business enterprise, and that would make you very rich. Or when it comes to spending things other than money, like spending time and energy, don't you find you're more efficient because you were watching the dollars?
I hope so. It's hard to know what I would have been like if I were, different or had a different life. But I actually think one of the main benefits is that after you finish undergrad, unless you keep going in academia, you don't always get the chance to have these sort of stimulating discussions that you were having when you were in school. And so for a few years, I was sort of missing that in my life. And now that there's a lot more sort of action around this effective altruism movement, I've really enjoyed being able to talk with people about these really important and really interesting problems. And there's so many aspects to it, both the lifestyle, but also sort of all this development stuff, and how do the economics of it work? How do the research of it? There are all these interesting questions, and I've met so many interesting people through this that I wouldn't, have met people at Princeton and Oxford and all these places. So that's been one of the main benefits to me.
But you have the time to meet these people because you're not blowing that time shopping, spending your money,
Or even running up a big cell phone bill, obviously. Alexander, let's come to you. I mean, are there discussions going on among people at GiveWell about how much each of you give and what your attitude is to spending on yourself?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that comes up for us a lot, to say the least. None of us, I think, give it sort of the Jeff and Julia level, although, we read their blogs and talk about their ideas. So it's nice to actually sort of see Julia in person-ish for the first time. But, yeah, this is an ongoing topic of conversation for us. I mean, I think we all do sort of, the typical discussion point is to start with the idea of tithing, but not for any sort of, I think, particularly strong reason. It's just an inherited idea. And then, I think one of the things we're always conscious of is the over-focusing on limiting spending sometimes seems like it can lead to other kinds of inefficiencies. And so, working at GiveWell, one of the blunt examples of this is, sometimes I could spend a long time cooking a meal for the week. But if I was willing to eat out, I would save my time and I could just spend more time doing my job. And there's definitely cases of efficiency gains like that, where I think you can spend money to buy time or to buy other things that will make life easier that, given sort of the overall bent of my work, I think it can be sort of net positive buys. And so like a total focus on sort of minimizing expenditure as opposed to sort of maximizing output or something like that, I think misses something. Obviously it's different if you're earning to give or something where like really the focus is on trying to maximize the amount that you're going to give monetarily as opposed to via like other mechanisms.
Julia, you were nodding about that. You also say something
Yeah,
about
I think that's absolutely true. And certainly early on, I was very focused on the penny pinching aspect of it. And eventually my husband pointed out, like if you earn more money, you would have more money to donate. And, that's a lot, it's more significant than like, are you going to eat out or are you going to, cook your dinner tonight? So I do think, emphasizing, what you can actually get done is more important than how little can you spend. So if you can get more done, whether that's through earning more and donating more or doing a different sort of work or, whatever it is where you can help, that's more important than how little can I live on.
Well, what you said is somebody who says, and a lot of people make this argument, and sometimes it's valid, that for a lot of folks, they feel the way they're donating is they're doing something less lucrative than they could be doing. What do you say to people who say that? I feel I don't have to give because, I could have been a doctor instead of teaching school.
I think it depends on what the impact is. If you choose to teach school, but actually you could have been a lawyer or a doctor and hired several other teachers, say, maybe not in the US, but like in another country, maybe it's better to have those 3 other teachers, and have you be a lawyer or doctor than it is for you personally to do that.
So they should submit the decisions to utilitarian calculus.
Sure.
In other words.
So in your writing, Zell, you often talk about numbers, because you sort of, and obviously you have, you're a mathematically gifted person. Do you feel that you see these things in terms of numbers, in terms of numbers of lives that you can save?
I try to. I may not be as philosophically sophisticated as you, but I think of myself as a sort of somebody who from birth fell into utilitarianism, and I don't see any other calculus.
Okay.
And people are always saying, how do you compute good to people? How do you figure out the greatest good for the greatest number? And the argument that I think comes out of your writing is that at the extremes, the great good and the negative good are easily discernible, like the saving of a life.
Yeah, there seem to be some cases that are very clear, I guess, but obviously not everybody thinks about it in those relatively numerical terms about the number. A lot of people think, well, I want to do some good with my life, but not necessarily I want to do the most good. That's the sort of maximizing idea.
But it's good that some of these organizations like GiveWell, the whole effective altruism movement is forcing charities, 501c3s to be evaluated on essentially utilitarian.
Yeah, broadly so, I think that's right.